my ambition.
Oh, there's some frantic energy there.
Because this is the fifth time that guys that we're trying, fifth
Oh, don't
take.
exaggerate. It's the
Okay,
fourth time.
it's the 15th. No, I'm kidding. This is the just the ambition way of doing things, isn't it?
Yep. You know, there are always going to be tech problems behind the scenes, and let's just, I guess, keep it real and crack on with it.
Exactly. Welcome back, guys. This is Tiffany
And
and
Alex, hi.
hello, hello. So today we've got a fabulous and very patient guest.
The most patient guest ever.
This is Sharadha. So I'll tell you more about Sharadha. So Sharadha Ramakrishnan is an engineering coach at Digits. I'm pretending I'm doing this for the first time. It's an engineering coach at Digits with 15 plus years in tech. She's previously director of engineering at Yelp. She led a 15 plus person data and analytics team. After founding her own startup, she specialized in infrastructure and microservices architecture. She's a passionate advocate for women and mothers in tech. Shar mentors aspiring female technologists while raising her two children, Ved and Nyla, in Chennai, India. Welcome, Shar.
Thank you so much. It is so funny because every time I hear you do that intro, you get better at it almost because you're like,
We've done it. Oh,
you've done it already four
we've
It's
done
all
it.
the practice.
Honestly, we have 60 episodes of Ambition, but I think we've done it probably like 150 times, really, behind the scenes.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. I know y'all were really looking forward to this interview, but maybe the fourth time around, not so
I
much.
might be like, forget this, forget this.
I'm still looking forward to it.
Exactly, same. So I know we found you on LinkedIn. I especially loved your post about moving back to India. So you said how you moved back to India after living in California for 12 years. And what I found interesting was how you were describing your evolving definition of freedom, from seeing it as an escape in your 20s to now finding freedom and returning to your roots when you became a mother. And as someone who's moved from Nigeria to the UK, I've experienced like a similar shift. Now I view freedom and community in a different context. So I'd love to know more about the moment when you realized that what you once wanted to escape from had now become exactly what you needed as a parent.
Just
Yeah, and
pretend you haven't told us
I
about it
know.
already.
I mean, I can talk about this all day. I was telling you in the previous take, it comes up like it's not one moment where I
Hmm, hmm.
realize that. It kind of comes up on an everyday basis of like, oh yeah, this is something that I used to not appreciate or not like run away from, want to run away from. But now I'm like, wow, I'm so glad this is in my life. And a few like little examples of that is in my 20s after I graduated, the important thing for me, the thing that I considered freedom, especially being brought up in an Indian family, obviously parents want to know exactly everything that you're doing and that they want you to focus on academics. They don't want you to be dating boys and they want you to focus on building a career and things like that. And so even though like I grew up in a quite a broad-minded family and parents had a very like broad-minded approach to our upbringing, there was still a lot of things that I wanted to experience as a young woman that did not have my parents involved in things. And so as parents and society to a large extent, like I didn't want the aunties and people in the neighborhood coming in complaining to my mom about who I was seeing or where they saw me out drinking in some bar, and I'm like, Auntie, you were there too.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing. That's what I thought I wanted. And moving to a country like the United States and California, it is very much a choose your own journey when it comes to how much you want to socialize and the kind of community you want to build. Nobody's in your face forcing you to do things, or like in your business wanting to snoop around. I mean, there's a few instances of those, but for the most part, people leave you alone until you choose to engage. And so all that was like, oh my God, my individuality is being celebrated. I'm able to explore and self-discovery and all that. And so important. Like, I don't think I would ever give that up. I think that self-discovery was so important to who I am today and where I'm at, and being comfortable with saying, no, I want to move back home and experience all the things that I ran away from, because now I want to embrace it. Now I want that community. I want the nosy neighbors. I want people to be like, okay, like, your kids didn't go to school today. What's going on? Like, are they sick? Can we help out? And I'm not like, oh, that's none of your business. Like, please come and help me out. Please come and be a part of my life and my children's lives. Because one of the things I did experience is being a first generation immigrant in the United States. I have no family, right? It's all friends. And so you have these children, and you want people to be able to enjoy the things that they do, their first words, or when they're walking, or when they do something smart. And it's not just the hard times, like even the good times. You want to share it with people. And when you don't have family around, and we don't have that community around, it's just my husband and I, like, sharing videos back and forth, or like after the kids go to bed, we like scroll through our phone when finally the kids are in bed, but then you're scrolling through your phone being like, oh my God, like, they're so cute. And you share these things over WhatsApp, and I'm like, I don't want that. I want my children to be enjoyed by more people. I want that community around them. And so now when my kids come back from school, there's a whole 10 minutes where the building staff and, you know, whoever's walking downstairs, like neighbors that are walking downstairs, interacting with my kids and like, you know, doting over them. And it's just so nice to see. And I don't ask for it. I don't like, it's just there. And I love the ease of that.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
And obviously a big contrast to being just you and your husband in California. And what was the catalyst that made you decide you wanted to move back?
Yeah, so I think I share about this a lot on LinkedIn as well. So my son, a 5-year-old son, was diagnosed to be on the autistic spectrum when he was 3 years old. And so our parenting journey started looking a lot different than other parents with neurotypical children. And even more so, we wanted a community around him. We wanted people to be able to not just help us out, but understand Ved, understand who he was as a person. Now, with neurotypical children, what ends up happening is you can assume certain things like, oh, they would love to read storybooks, or they would love to color and paint, and you're like, okay, even if you meet your friends' kids or your family's kids who are neurotypical, once every 2 months or once every 3 months, you can sit down and do things with them, and you'd be like, oh wow, you know, this is great. You're building a moment with them. You're having a moment with them. But with my son, you're going to have to spend days with him to understand and to know exactly how to interact with him, what makes him tick, because he takes time to warm up. It is a challenging thing for him to build those relationships, right? And so you have to know him in and out to start building that. And I just did not have that luxury or freedom in the United States to be able to demand that out of anybody. And so one of the main reasons we wanted to move back was to find that support and community for him, and a village for ourselves where, you know, Ved can grow up in a community that celebrates him and that knows him. The decision itself to like pull the trigger, that happened pretty much overnight. So we were here for a friend's wedding. It was not planned out at all. And for the 3 weeks that we're here, I saw my son thrive, and my little girl as well. And at the end of it, I was like, you know, something's got to change. And we just decided to cancel their tickets back to California.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And we went, my parents, and this is where my privilege comes in, right? Because I do have parents that are willing to be involved and willing to help out. And so they said, you know, leave the kids here, we'll take care of them, go figure out how you can make the move if that's what you want to do. And so my husband and I went back to California and, you know, slowly executed the move over the course of like 6 months. And so, yeah, that was definitely a luxury.
I like that because I think I can relate to it, this sense of sometimes, you know, how you see the world changes when you become a parent. And because it's similar for me. Like I grew up, I had a lot of, I suppose, freedom as well when I grew, you know, for my sort of teenage years and sort of university post-out, because when I moved out from university, you know, because I lost my mom when I was quite young, I felt like I had, and my dad I wasn't very close to my dad, so I had time and space to kind of go off and do my own thing and find my own person. And that's something, again, like you, is something that really helps me to find myself. But I think now, in the environment that we're raising our children is very different. So I actually moved to my husband's area, or where he's from, where his parents are, and we now have that village also around our children, and I can see how they're thriving and how that individualistic life that I had just is, but I'm enjoying this kind of village kind of support that we also have with the children. Because, for example, recently my son is always asking about his family. He's asking about my cousins, and he talks about like family members. So I realized that for children it's just different. I think they do want to find their own kind of, they want to find their own sort of village. They're almost kind of looking out to what's around them. I'm also interested to see, do you think there are also differences in like the culture in terms of how children are seen and perhaps interacted with,
100%.
that makes it easier as well?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, the way I try to describe it is a very pro-kid
Okay.
culture here in India, specifically maybe the place that I'm in.
Okay.
It is very much, children are very much part of the community. They're not an addition, they're not someone who needs to be accommodated. And it is very much like any event you go to. Like, for example, a very simple thing. We went to our kids' like orientation at school, like parent orientation at school. And they were just trying to go through like what the curriculum looks like, what they would be doing in school. And I went in thinking, oh, I need to make arrangements for my children. Like, I need to like either leave them with the nanny, or I need to like get my parents to look after them. And I figured it out, and then I went to the orientation, and they were like, where are the kids? And I said, oh, I left them at home with my parents. And they're like, oh, you should have brought them. We have like a classroom with nannies that can help out, that just take care of the children. Like, it's the norm to assume that kids will be with you.
That you just bring
And
them.
you just bring them because they're part of the community. And I've grown so used to children being seen almost as an inconvenience that you have to like think about. I mean, there's even, and nothing to take away from this at all. I think to each their own. I have received wedding invitations where children are not invited, and you have to like think about what do you do with them. And I 100% think that having venues where children are not invited is a must for your sanity, and you need to be able to do that. But I think when that becomes the norm, and when it becomes a thing of like every single time you're going to have to figure out what to do with your kids, that's just overhead. And that's just like, oh, I'd much rather not do that. I don't want to spend like $300 on finding a nanny or a babysitter to like go to this thing.
I know what you mean, like the attitude that people have around kids flying, where they almost don't seem to understand that sometimes kids need to travel too. You're not just going on holiday with them. You might have
Yeah.
to go from one place to another, and you might not be able to leave your kids behind. They might be needed for the journey. But,
Yeah.
people can get really upset about there being kids on flights. It's like,
I know.
it's transport.
Exactly. And there's so many posts about like kids crying on flights and people making reels about that. I'm like,
And disclaimer, that might have been me before I was a mum.
oh, 100%. I was there as well, right? Like I was like, so for example, when I see kids running around in restaurants, and this was me 10 years back, when I saw them running around restaurants, I was like, why can't their parents like control them?
Make them sit down.
Yeah,
Why can't
I've spent a long time apologizing to all the my previous colleagues who are children. I just didn't get it. They're like, oh, I dropped my kid off to nursery, and I cried, and I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I get it. It's just such. I think until you become a parent, then you're kind of brought into like a club. Before then, you just don't get it. You have to live the experience.
I
Yeah.
think if society makes it easier as well, then maybe that transition's not quite so hard if you are used to seeing kids around, and you kind of know what you're expecting a little bit more as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So definitely culture plays a huge role, I think, and the support system as well. The ability to, I think, again, like India is a very service-oriented, labor-focused society, and everybody wants a job. Like you have people looking for jobs. They want to come and help for, it's still a developing economy. And so creation of jobs is something that does lead to more privileged people like me feeling like, oh, I can get so much more help and support here. And I think that was just not a possibility in the United States.
How about now then? How do you feel about what's it like? What stage are you at now in terms of actually asking for help as well? Like, do you feel that that's something that you're quite comfortable doing, or do you sometimes struggle with that?
Oh, 100% I struggle with that. And this is the topic that comes up with my therapist a lot. And this is almost like maybe just a conditioning, both with like parenting conditioning as well as societal conditioning of you need to figure it all out, otherwise you're a failure, right? You need to do it all, otherwise you're a failure. And even if you bring something up, and it's almost like a version of how tough love manifests itself. So, for example, if I go to my mom and I cry about a thing, and I'm like, oh my God, today has been so hard, and I have to figure out all these things, and I have all these therapies that I need to take with to. Her response would not be to feed into that and say, oh, I understand, like it is a hard thing, like come give me a hug. She would be like, we did so much more in our generation, like why are you crying about this? You need to go do you need to like buck up and do what you have to do,
Yeah.
you know. And so I think it is like and I understand where that comes from. It's completely a good place that it comes from, but what that also subconsciously tells you is, oh, if you don't have it together and if you don't do it all and you have a weak moment, then you're failing at what you do. And so that like also translates into like, oh, can I actually ask help for this? And if I do ask for help for this, do I deserve it? And is this something that I'm allowed to do? I don't know. Do you both also feel kind of this similarly about asking for help? Because I do think it's like a more widespread issue.
No, I definitely do. I think you're right, because I think I kind of sometimes as an immigrant, as I don't know, African, moving to the UK, you kind of feel like your strength is your thin. Like I feel like my strength is my thin. It's one thing that, differentiates me from everybody else. I say sometimes on the podcast that when I was in primary school, I had to like wash my school uniform, like my blazer, hand wash it. So that's how I grew up. Like we didn't use washing machines and this kind of. My dad just didn't believe in that. So sometimes now as a mum, I realize that I don't have to prove. I feel like I will need to prove that I'm strong. I'm prove that I'm capable. My mother-in-law will say, "Oh, Tiffany, do you want me to?" No, no, I can do the dishes. I can look after kids. It's okay. It's okay. But I think it is kind of. It's a little bit toxic because motherhood is just it's a different ball game. You need help. So I am learning also to just kind of be like, yes, please, and you can help me. It doesn't mean I'm any less strong. It just means that I know that I can't do it by myself.
And I think a lot of it is pressure we put on ourselves,
Yeah.
but then there's also the pressure from society, which is all the like having it all, which, we've talked about it before. It translates as to doing it all and making sure that you do it all with a smile and that you don't show that you're struggling. But I mean, my parents in particular, and Eddie's parents, my husband, they love having Ted. They've said when he goes to school, they were like, we don't know what we're going to do when he goes to school and we can't have him one day a week. So I try and always think of that and think they actually love him being there with it. It's not a struggle for them to, the help they're offering is also something they really enjoy. And, as a mother, I will always want to help my son, and they're still our parents. So I think that element of them wanting to help us is always still there too, even if there's a bit of tough love in there and they might tell us stuff that, maybe other people wouldn't. But yeah, I think it is tough but you just have to remind yourself that it is okay to ask for help. And actually, you can't do it all. You'll just die of exhaustion.
And I think also, I think someone was saying about how this idea of kind of the caring and the connection is different. So we are predominantly maybe responsible for connection with our children, not necessarily like the caring, which is like the day. I don't know if that's the right term, like the day to day, washing dishes, washing their clothes, feeding them. It's in connecting with them that's the most important thing that you have to do. You can't, give it to someone else to do. So perhaps I'm learning more about differentiating the two. Yes, my mother-in-law can help me with doing the washing. I should accept that word for that. But maybe, speaking to my son, maybe if it falls over, that sort of thing, I should be there to do that. So I think once you start to separate the two as well, you realize, that you can set up with other things doesn't mean you're less of a parent or less of a mother.
I
It's-
really,
yeah.
I agree. I remember that conversation, and I really liked that we talked about that those things are not like the cleaning the house or the peripheral things like washing their clothes and stuff like that. That's not actually the motherhood bit of it. That you're right, that the being a mother is being there as their emotional support, as their person. And it sounds like you definitely really fulfill that role, Shar, as well. And that you've had to be a real advocate for your son, and that's the motherhood thing that other people can't do, not the cleaning and tidying and things.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's also about what is visible externally, right? So when someone's coming to visit you and someone's seeing you and your family just for like an hour because they're visiting, they see the external stuff. They see how clean your house is. They see how clean your children are. They see how well fed they are. And these are the things that are more annoying, but I've started to look past, because again, the flip side of community being very involved in a place like India is you will have visitors that come and say, oh, why have your children grown so thin? Are you not feeding them well? And so, and this is the thing that when I say freedom, is like, I have the freedom to completely look past that and be like, this doesn't bother me at all, because I know exactly what I'm doing for my kids. And what they don't see is exactly what you were saying, Alex, is the emotional connection you have with your children. It's the fact that my autistic son feels like he has an advocate in me and he finds a safe space in me. It's the fact that my neurotypical daughter loves her brother to an extent where even at 3 years old, she's advocating for him. Those are the parts that they don't see, and you just have to be okay with that. You have to be so strong and secure in your motherhood and what you're bringing to the table that it is just something that you learn to look past. And I remember even my mother-in-law, I remember this at our wedding when I got married to Ashwin, my husband. We were on stage for the reception, and so again, in Indian weddings you have this reception sort of thing where people come and greet you on stage. My mother-in-law was standing with us, and we were 25 at the time, and this auntie walks on stage, goes to my mother-in-law, even at 25, she says, Ashwin looks so skinny. What are you doing? Are you not feeding him enough? And she got so upset, and her whole evening was ruined, right? And I think this is kind of what I'm trying to say. I feel like as mothers, we are guilt tripped so many times, and this is kind of where the intersection into career comes as well. When you're an ambitious person and when you are so driven in your career that part of who you are is defined by what you're doing at work as well as your motherhood. There's such a fine balance, and you need to be so secure in both sides for you to feel like you're doing a good job. Otherwise, society is just trying to pull you apart in both worlds. Like at work, it's like you're not doing enough. At home, you're not doing enough. And I think it's just like that strength comes from within and that security comes from within, if that makes sense.
I totally get that. And I think because I know, like I said, we found you on LinkedIn, and I think that's because you're sharing a lot of your experience. And I'm interested in that because I imagine you pre-motherhood, if you want to see your post-motherhood, right? Just, tell us more about that. Like the fact that you're now openly talking about not just your technical expertise, but your journey parenting your son. Where does
And
it
I
come
think
from?
as well, the reaction that you've had to that a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, Alex, I'm just finishing.
Sorry.
This idea that, what kind of compelled you to want to do that? Like, what do you think you find in doing that on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I mean, and this is another another learning moment for me in this journey of like, how do I see myself as a professional and what kinds of things do I want to bring to the table? And after I had my son, I went back to work, and I was leading a pretty large organization of engineers, most of who were young men who either weren't married or had recently gotten married, did not have children. And I think the place I worked at had amazing culture. Like we did all the right things, but it is a fact of the matter that they hadn't worked with a leader or even a colleague who had come back from having a baby, and they did not know how my worldview had changed, and they did not know the magnitude of what it means to ramp up at work after someone has a baby, right? And so as I was having conversations, like I came back to a doc that had a million different questions, and it just said, "Oh, we will answer this after Shar comes back." I'm like, not going to answer even one of those things because I literally need time to like ramp up and understand what's going on, and that's going to take me time. So for the first month, all I'm going to do is like sit in meetings, observe what's going on, be a fly on the wall, and then I might get to a place where I can unblock these things. And my literal job is to be obsolete, because you should be able to make progress on this even without me. Like, you shouldn't have to block on me, right? So there's something going wrong here. And what I started doing is talking to, in my one-on-ones, talking to them more about what I'm experiencing as a mother. Like I put blocks on my calendars to say pump time, because I'm like, oh, I need to pump because I'm at work and my kid needs breast milk. He's 5 months old. And he's solely dependent on me for food. And I then remember someone asked me, Shar, I see a block on your calendar. It says pump time. Can I schedule over it? I was like, absolutely not. This is what it means. And they were like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. And so there's so many things that people don't know because it's just not talked about enough, or they haven't experienced it in their lives, right? And it could be completely innocent. It's not for lack of trying, or it's not for not wanting to know. It's just simply it didn't happen. And so when I was able to talk to them about it, I definitely think that I was able to contribute something to their lives at that moment, helping them understand this is how you work with a woman who's come back from maternity leave. This is how you might support your future wife or your girlfriend or anybody who is going through this, right? And ever since then, I've realized that having a fulfilling career doesn't just mean you are your most professional self at work and you're doing the best you can with your technical abilities, whatever that ability may be. It is bringing your whole self to work. Right? And otherwise you would burn out. If you're not able to bring your whole self to work, you're not able to talk about the things that are happening at home and how that's affecting your work life, or vice versa, and have accommodations in both place to be your best self, I think it's just, it's not going to work. And so that's why...
I feel like such a teachable moment as well for, like you say, for these guys who'd never experienced. I can't believe they saved up your work, like stuff to ask you while you were off. What a thing to come back to. But yeah, I think such a valuable experience for them, not like, for working with any other women as well, and understanding the impact that having a child has and the kind of accommodations that you need when you come back to work. So that must have been really valuable for them, and hopefully they'll be able to use that in the future. But what I was going to ask, and sorry I interrupted Tiffany with this, was about the reaction, because I think you said on the call with us previously that some people have been supportive about you sharing that journey. Some people have had some things to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing when I just going back to that guilt tripping comment that I made, right? So people will look at my posts and mostly 95% of people will be like, this is amazing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for teaching us something today. Thank you for helping us be more inclusive. And there's 5% of the population who would make comments like, why are you talking about this when LinkedIn's like a professional platform?
This isn't Facebook.
It isn't Facebook. Right? And it's like, oh, have you looked at, and this is a literal comment that I got from a troll because he had one connection. He comes on my profile and he's like, have you looked at the last 10 posts you've shared? Have you shared anything technical? Like, what are you adding to this platform? This isn't about work. And my initial instinct is obviously to respond to that and being like, it is work. At the end of the day, I am talking about whether it's work or not, none of your business, but it is work. Like, this is something that I do want to talk about, and I find this platform a great place to talk about it. And then I went into his profile and it's like one connection, no profile picture, obviously. It's like, okay, this is a troll, so I'm just going to block him.
That's quite flattering though, if somebody set up an account purely to troll you.
Right?
It's like you really got under his skin, and I'm assuming it was a man.
It was definitely.
I feel like the LinkedIn is shifting, or maybe because I'm now in the motherhood space, so I'm seeing more of the motherhood posts. But I definitely think we need to be able, like I said, to bring our whole self to professional spaces, and having children it's happening, it's there, like it's happening, and it's going on 24/7 a day. So how can we ignore it and just be professional when something's happening alongside, us being professionals? And I definitely think there is a point where the maternal identity and the professional identity will come together. I'm interested also, I think, in the fact that obviously you talk a lot about Ved and his experiences. It sounds like, because I've come to this conclusion that, we're not just raising our children, they're raising us. And I'd love to know how he's changing and has changed your worldview as well, and how you see, how you see the world and how you think differently now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as we grow older and as we assume more roles in life, right, the your worldview continues to expand, and you like, this is going back to that freedom comment of what was freedom 10 years back is not freedom anymore, and that's evolved, right? And so with my son, already becoming a parent was a huge worldview shift. The skills that I acquired as a mother is a multiplier for me at work, honestly. For example, one of the things we do at work is we fight fires. Like, let's say the site is down and nobody's able to log in. We call it a fire, and we do an incident response, and we like coordinate, and we're like, we need to fix this. And so when I came back from maternity, and the people were talking about a fire, I was like, I was just in 45 hours of labor and barely like got out with my life and my son's life intact. This is not a fire. This is not a P0. And that's the worldview shift in your head. It's like you've seen so much that you're able to handle things at work with a much more like stable, level-headed, and that's why I call it a multiplier. So with Ved's diagnosis and the fact that he is on the spectrum, and it shows me this whole new worldview of how brains can be different and how there's different neurotypes. It again expanded my worldview so much. It helped me, I think, grow as not just as a mother, as a person as well. Things that used to be, what I thought was in my control. Like, for example, he would, before I knew he was autistic, he would stim a lot. Like, he would either run around or he would like watch fans because he loved this visual stimulation. And I would say, stop it, don't do it. Like, go do something else. Like, come color with me. Like, I would constantly be redirecting him. And I understood he's not being defiant there. He's not being, he's not being difficult. It is a literal difference in his brain that is pushing him to do those things, and it's not in my control. I can't control him. I need to go into his world to understand how I can engage with him, how I can build a connection with him, and that completely changed how I viewed parenting, right? And even just interacting with other people. It's you don't control it. You're not in a place to say, this is how you engage with me. I need to come into your world. I need to understand and that's just a whole new level of empathy that opened up for me, and it's just made me a better person, I think.
Oh, that's a beautiful answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you make a good point, because I think I've seen a similar thing with my children, where I generally, and this is one of the reasons why I share about motherhood now on LinkedIn, where before I might have been one of those people who thought this is a professional website, because I do think motherhood changes you. And I was reading, I was saying on LinkedIn this week, I was reading Anne Frank with my children, like the the children's series. And there was a section in which it said, all the children with the stars in their chest had to go to a different school, and my son said, I want to be a teacher at that school, so when the kids lose something, I can show them that they'll be okay. And I thought, wow, I've read Anne Frank so many times, that never occurred to me. And I think you're right in a sense that for a moment there, when you become a parent, you have to go into their world, because I never thought the empathy for how we saw the children as children who might lose things and be upset, and he wants to console them. And I just thought, what, that is life. That is amazing. And I think it's interesting how, sadly, when women become mothers, how we're kind of seen as less capable. And actually, we are developing a lot of leadership skills, because we are seeing this and doing this all the time. And I'm interested to know how, because I see that you also mentor younger women. I mean, do you often think about how motherhood, like you said, it's been a multiplier for you, but sadly, how other women maybe lose their confidence? Would you have any advice for someone perhaps who is in a similar experience now, becoming a mother? Is there a way that you look at it that gives you that sort of maybe confidence boost when that you could share to other women also in this similar journey?
Yeah, and this is the part, maybe my answer is not going to be too satisfactory because
No,
I've
that's
still
okay.
been trying to
Okay.
understand how to objectively talk about it and not subjectively. There was an exercise we once did when I was at Yelp in leadership. We wanted to figure out, can we objectively build a run book, essentially, a guidebook for women who are looking to step into leadership instead of just telling them you need to be at the right place at the right time. Because women often hear, oh, you were just lucky, or you reported to the right, but you won the boss lottery, and that's why you got this position. Nobody's actually told, here's exactly how you get to where you need to get to. And I don't think we were very successful at doing this because all of the women in leadership, including myself, were not able to look back and think about what is it exactly that I did to get here without thinking, oh, that was just luck. That was just like dumb luck. That's why, and quantify what are the skills that led you to do what you did, right? And so even in this scenario, Tiffany, like to your question, I've thought about it a lot. Like how do I present myself in a place of security and confidence? And even though I have all of these doubts and imposter syndrome, even now, like as it comes along with me in different venues and shows up in different venues, it largely, I still feel very secure in what I'm bringing to the table on both sides, on the motherhood side as well as on the work side. But how did I get there? And what is it that you need to do to get there? I think if I were to think about it, I think one is basically, again, I'm going to go back to support, like finding who your support group is. Like you could think of it as your board of directors, like personal board of directors. Like who are the people you can go talk to? Who are the people that will listen to you and understand you and help you out with like, okay, what is that next step? How can you get there? Instead of just being a sounding board or a shoulder to cry on, there should be someone who can help brainstorm and get you to that next step. So actively finding that may not be everyone at work, or like may not be your boss, it may not be a colleague, it could be other people outside. And we so very rarely do that, where we are reaching outside of the bounds of our work to look for people who can mentor us and who can be a shoulder to cry on, or to express what you're going through. And so I think that's one thing that I have done, like create those connections and lean on those people to be like, hey, I want you, like demanding their time and saying, I totally get it if you're not able to do it, but I do need you, and I do need you to make this time for me, and let's have that conversation. So that's been very, very helpful for me. I think the second thing is like truly understanding, like separating out what are your insecurities from what are areas of improvement. Because you could be so fantastic at a thing and still have insecurities around it and not believe that you are good at it, but you could have like other areas of improvement. And the thing that I keep telling myself, the more I agonize over the things that I'm good at that I'm still insecure about, I'm losing out on the opportunity to grow on the things that I actually need to make progress on. And that is significant time lost. And it is a process. It is a process to get there. But I would say ultimately accepting where you need to grow and finding space and time and people who can help you with that and demand that help. It's kind of like comes full circle. We talked about asking for help. We talked about community. We talked about support. I think that's ultimately what I'll say is what helps me get to that point.
I think that's super interesting, and I love the bit about kind of finding your own. I think we've spoken to someone else who had this as one of their things as well before, of finding their group of cheerleaders, but you're kind of taking it one step further and looking for specific skills they have and being able to advise you on your journey. And I think what occurred to me there was, I think because men have always dominated the workplace, that level of kind of informal mentorship has probably always existed for men. And so there's maybe a bit of work to do for women to create those mentorship opportunities. And you're obviously working as a formal mentor for people, but even if you don't have formal mentoring, that you need to work that out yourself, those support structures and people who can help you to the next step. So I think that's really helpful and practical It's something that people
Absolutely.
can absolutely do themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is where you're right that it's always existed for men. Again, it is something that I truly believe cannot be done purely within the female community,
Yeah.
right? Because men have to show up as allies. They have to be educated about how to be allies for women on this journey. Like, how do you amplify their voice? How do you like make sure she's getting a seat at the table? Because most leadership positions are still held by men. And this is why I feel like my position as a leader is not something I can take lightly. It's not something that I have to think 10 times before saying I want to step away from this, because there's not a lot of people like me in leadership that look like me in leadership. And so I feel a personal responsibility for all of the women who are trying to get there, before I say this is not something I want to do. You know what I mean? Like, it is something that I think about when I say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's not an easy decision.
Okay, no, I get that. So this idea of almost like the succession part of it, like what are you passing on, what are you modeling? But I think it makes
Yeah.
sense, because I think a lot of us do. I think one of the things that women struggle is seeing themselves as leaders, even though that they are. Even women at work who are leaders, called leaders, often will be like, no, I'm not a leader. But it's interesting now, leadership exists in so many formats. And I think what I find really interesting with you as well is the fact that, you're now an advocate as well for FED, and you're advocate for people who are going through this and perhaps don't have the confidence to share. You're opening all our eyes. So my kind of final question, because I know we probably need to wrap up soon, is there something that, as mothers of children who are neurotypical, is there something we should be aware of about neurodivergent children, or you wish we knew, so that we would be able to navigate that a bit better? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do see what you mean. I
Because I know
think,
sometimes people might say things, or like things that, so to you it sounds so stupid, but to us maybe just ignorant.
yeah, I mean, I mean, we could do a whole nother session of this, but I'll try to get the
Please
big
do,
bits,
yeah.
right? Yeah. I think one of the things that I'll talk about it from the perspective of what I would have appreciated as I was
Okay.
going through that journey before I found the language to express what I needed and how to think about it. I did wish people didn't tell me, oh, your son doesn't look autistic. I think you're blowing it out of proportion. I wish people didn't ask me, why are you putting your kid through all these therapies and evaluations? He'll just grow out of it. I wish people didn't assume that I was making a larger deal of it than it was. And even if it were the case, just being supportive and curious, like benevolent curiosity is the best thing you can have, of like, okay, tell me, what is it that you're seeing? What are the concerns? How is it that I can help you out on this journey? How can I interact with Ved? Instead of like seeing us for a few minutes and then asking those questions that make you doubt yourself of like, am I actually blowing it out of proportion? But no, I am seeing an issue here. I'm seeing a challenge that he has, and he has to go through it. So that's one thing. The second thing is, again, and I'm raising a neurotypical child as well. So I know what the things that we try to explain to both of them, right? And there are some rules and boundaries of society that we talk to them about. We talk about personal space, we talk about body autonomy, we talk about, even at this young age, it is a world full of predators, and they should be aware of how to protect themselves. But when it comes to neurodiverse children, they don't have those same boundaries, and they interact very differently with children. So my son, for example, loves hugs and kisses. He loves to go like put his forehead against his friend's forehead, and he's sensory seeking. And I don't want to say stop doing that. That's invading the other person's personal space, even though he should know it. He should at some point know it. I want to find a happy medium where, if he does trust someone, if there's a friend that he really loves, can that friend modify some of those boundaries to accommodate his world? Can we as human beings and adults accommodate some of those boundaries to say, okay, this is what comes naturally to him? And so when my son is going to therapy for hours together to learn to play with neurotypical children, can neurotypical children adjust some of their worldviews to accommodate him and how he plays as well? And ultimately, I'll say all play is valid play. It doesn't mean that you have to play with things a certain way. play can look very different, and all play is fun. And so teaching our neurotypical children to not say, oh, that looks weird, I don't want to engage in that, to say, oh, that looks different, I want to see why that's fun, let me go run with you, or let me go go on, do whatever you're doing, like jump or hang off things, and see why that's fun. And so I see my neurotypical child start to do that. And so that's what I would say for parents that are raising neurotypical children.
Wow.
Thank you. That's super helpful, isn't it, Tiffany? And I think, I think people talk a lot about autism awareness, but what you're talking about is more acceptance than awareness.
Absolutely.
And actually, adapting our behavior and not just expecting them to fit in, which is what they're having to do all the time anyway. I think that's a really lovely way of framing it.
Just even being open-minded, right? To different ways of children being children, rather than thinking, oh, that's not normal, what's that? Oh, it must be, yeah, that's interesting. Thank you, because I think it's helpful for us all, because obviously, neurodiversity also is on a spectrum, right? So it could be subtle, it could be a lot greater. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course. And just one last thing on that point, though. But I will say, when you do open your mind that way, you are subject to a whole world of joy and happiness that you don't experience otherwise. Like I can only explain this in words, but I think you have to experience it. The joy and love that comes from neurodiverse people is just, it's pure in a different way, like it's uninhibited. And I think we all need to get ourselves to a place where we can experience that without shutting down. It's unfortunate that the world has put us in that place where we shut down with physical contact. But I wish we can get to a place where we can accept that.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I think in a world where, anyone could advocate for it, I think he's lucky to have you as well as his mum. So thank you for sharing that. And I think continue your work, we typically at this stage ask that you tell people where they can find you. But before we even do that, I just want to say that, if you're not already following Shar, you should. Just because I think you have such an interesting way of seeing the world, and, what you're talking about, it's about us just being a bit more understanding. And I think everyone should follow you on LinkedIn. Are you on any other platforms? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love the phrase of benevolent curiosity. I thought that was spot on. And I'm going to aspire to live that as a value.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the vote of confidence. When I started writing on LinkedIn, I did not expect to receive so much love and support and kindness. It just I did want to write and not just post pictures. And I found LinkedIn to be a place where that could be something that the platform accommodates, as well as educating people, professional people, about how they should be thinking about this, who have the power and the privilege to educate others around them. And so that's kind of why I kept doing it. And there are lulls. I'm in a period of lull right now where I'm not finding the energy or the motivation to write, but I should get back to it. So definitely for autism advocacy and acceptance, and following Vade's journey and my journey as a parent of an autistic child, LinkedIn is where to find me. I am on Instagram as well. I do share a lot of parenting related stories, but it's more on the lighter side.
What's your name on Instagram so people can also follow?
It's going to be quite hard because it's my dad's ham ID that I adopted, but but if you search for my name, it should pop up, and my handle is VU2SRK. V for victory, U for umbrella, number 2 SRK.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. No, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for just being here and being yourself, really, Shar. You're amazing.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I do want to give that right back to the two of you. I love reading your posts, and I love the fact that y'all are doing this. I was just thinking today, I was getting ready, and I was like, how are they finding the time to do this with kids? And
fun, isn't it, Tiffany?
You've seen it. Tech issues, children issues. There's always something. So I know. Just
thank
show
you for
up, really.
Working through it. Yeah, thank you for showing up. That's a great way to put it, and thank you for amplifying people's voices. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
guys.
And thanks
It's
for
been a
listening,
pleasure.
everyone. Like, subscribe, and review us. I'm such a
That
pro
like
at that.
button.
Bye,
Right, take
guys.
care.